Hello, David McMillan here with part 6 of the adventures of Jed and Kevin. Now, tonight I won't make a long introduction. If you don't know where the story's gone, then, well, go and look at the other 5. But in brief, Jed, he's back home in Cleveland. Jed successfully returned from Colombia with 6 kilos. Well, what started out as 6 kilos, it's a little worn down now, but he's certainly got 5 kilos of cocaine for sale. Various things have been offered to him, and he's been kind of rushed. He's not sure if he should go for the deal. Who's involved? Well, Myra brought it to him, but it's his old friend Carl. Does he trust Carl? As much as anybody trusts anybody when we're talking about over $100,000 worth of coke, which is not very much. Is he new to it? Of course, he's completely new to it. He's bought an ounce or two, but it was already hammered. No, he knows, he feels that somehow he should be getting a better deal for his 5K. Is he right? The deal this fine morning is in a stub of land that pokes into the river. It's called Irishman's Bend. I asked you last week what was wrong with the geography of this. Well, if anybody bothered to take a look at the map, they'd see that the piece of land juts out like a thumb. There's not many ways on, not many ways off. If it was going to be a trap, I guess that's where you'd trap somebody. His instincts are quite good. He was in the car business. He did a lot of driving. He likes driving. It makes him feel free. And where is he driving now? Across to the tower. What happens next for Jed? As much as I try to keep this realistic, this little event, this little saving grace, does not usually happen. Let's look at the 2 scenarios. What would have happened? Jed would have gone to the meeting, found himself in a place he didn't like. Now, where are the worst places to do an exchange? Where they are in the movies, in some warehouse, some empty space? Why do people... Well, you can tell why screenwriters choose that place, because it's a good location for a shootout. It's a good location for an ambush. No, in real life people don't pick those kind of places, but they don't pick much better. Often as not, it's some kind of hotel. Why is it people think that the temporary, fleeting nature of other people's rooms is somehow offering safety? What they're thinking of hotels is that they offer anonymity. Other people have been there. The sheets are cleaned daily. The towels are disposed of. Yes, there's a connection there. It's kind of like if you choose a hotel for your swap, the drug deal, it's kind of like choosing the same place you would for cheap and possibly dangerous sex. Don't do that. Not unless you're young enough to afford the consequences anyway. Now, why is Jed being set up? Now, remember this. There was some difficulty with him getting the coke in Colombia. His money was lost. Myra produced some, but not entirely, not the full amount. Somebody else came into it. Karen, a local girl, she put in supposedly $3,000, and Myra put in the other 3. But that 3 was all there was. Colombian Karen came in on the deal back then, and she hasn't really left. Was it hers? No, there was a boyfriend involved, and he has friends in Chicago who have made it their business to go to Cleveland because a trail has been left. Some sort of careless remarks were made by Myra at some time. Some numbers were exchanged. That was enough. Do they have evil intent? No. It's not like every Colombian you meet wants to cut your head out, give you the famous necktie. They just want their share, and their share happens to be about 95%. Is that fair? But there's other people with a finger in the pie. The finger like the one that juts into that river. What Jed should have done was to determine exactly what everybody was getting out of this thing. If the deal was for 100k and it's 5 kilos, 20,000 a k, sure, there's room for other people to make a living, especially since this is straight from the top, the purities, well, into the 90s in this case. So that leaves lots of room, doesn't it? But there's greedy hands at work. There's Carl and Carl's friend. Yeah, Bob. Bob from the junkyard. What's he got to do with anything? Nothing again. There's somebody else behind him. So we've got Carl, we've got Myra, we've got Jed himself. Jed's done the hard work. He had to wear the fat suit and drag it all around the world. Myra's done a bit too. I'm not too sure how she figures she'll get out of this okay, but no doubt she has a plan. But put it this way, if Jed goes to that meeting, he won't come out with any 100,000. He'll probably come away with about 25,000 and a lot of talk, but that 5 kilos is going somewhere else. Just as he's about to leave that morning, as Jed's getting ready, with a little delay because Myra hasn't left the shower yet, he gets a call on a phone that he's had for a while. It only has really one person who's supposed to talk on it and one who's supposed to listen. Jed's the one who's meant to listen. The call is from Sefton Cooper, who gives him some advice. Keep that name in mind, because if you ever get a call from Sefton Cooper, you should listen. What does he say? He tells Jed to get out of that deal. And Jed says, as always, wise enough to listen to Sefton. Sure, I'll tell everybody it's off. Sefton then says, Jed, leave the room. Go take a walk. I'll speak to you at length. And here's an important point about advice and advice taking. You can't simply tell somebody, no matter what you know, walk away from it, drop it, say you don't want to do it anymore, because that leaves a mess. I speak from experience, because regular viewers will know that I had just that situation when partner Michael presented me with one. In my case, Michael's man, little Hassan from Thailand, had arrived with a few kilos of heroin in some cutlery boxes, and he was in a hotel watched by police, a hotel room into which the police had broken, very discreetly because they had the key, I guess, and drilled the cutlery box, so they knew what was in it. They also knew there was a meeting the next day. So, well, I could surmise a lot of that from what I'd heard. So I knew that telling Michael, drop it, leave it, get away, would not produce the desired result, of freedom and happiness for all. If he left the stuff, the police would come in and arrest them all anyway, certainly arrest the Thai courier. Well, it was more than that, but that's not the point. If Michael tried to change the day or rearrange any of the things the police had already heard, well, they would have known something was bad and probably moved anyway. The only solution was to go and pick up the stuff somehow and avoid getting arrested. Well, that was done. Now, there's a difference here. Jed doesn't have any police in the mix. That, fortunately, is rare in most drug transactions. But he has the Columbia group. He has Myra and Carl with his ambitions, and Bob, who knows who the hell he is when he's really around. No, he has to get out of that one, apart from any other reason, because he'll lose money. Sefton Cooper has made this call, this wonderful call, and explained to him what he has to do. So, on he goes, and on we go, to the meeting. You know, I'm telling a story about two people, and I don't really like it in television dramas where you get to a certain point and then suddenly you have to switch back into the mode and worry about the other story, the parallel one. But we'll have to leave Jed for a moment and bear in mind that he's been given some advice, so he's acting on that as we speak. But we're crossing over to Kevin, the Englishman, who's got, well, I can't even remember what it is now. I think it's about 3 kilos or something in some hard-shelled Samsonite cases. He's managed to get through the brakes, and the brake he needed was avoiding the police as he landed in Portugal, in Lisbon. And he did that by joining up with a respectable man, Noel. No, wait a minute. It was Enrico. Noel's the dumb son. Yeah. Enrico looks so respectable and earnest. Well, he didn't turn out to be that. But they still managed to walk through because the big task force police from Spain, who were on top of boss man Enrico, didn't want some minor arrest of Kevin spoiling the whole thing. And why was Kevin going to be arrested? Because his girlfriend, Carrie Kolonic, had confided in her brother, worrying about Kevin, and Bradley had done, well, the brotherly thing and ratted them all out to the cops because he's crawling up their ass. We'll come to that later. But it didn't really work out for Bradley, and it worked out for Kevin because he walked straight through and into, what was it? The Riverside Hotel, a little boutique job down in some kind of garden area in Lisbon. He's been introduced to Noel, who is the son of Enrico, third son, and Dad's not too happy with him. So, where do we go from there? A couple of pleasant days have passed, and Kevin has made friends with Noel. Why? Because they had time to do so. They took a slow driving trip over a couple of days, all the way back to the Enrico clan's base in Malaga in Spain. Yeah, happy times. Kevin, you know what it is? If you spend just enough time with almost anybody, you'll end up telling them everything. Do I have to explain what the friendship was or how it was cultivated in such a time? How the subject of cocaine and drugs and the business came to be discussed between them? Not really. Give it time and their mutual interests, it was discussed. And Kevin is he's being a little talkative because he has a problem. His coke is stuck in the plastic. He has no idea how to get it out because he hasn't been watching this program very long, or at all, and he needs help. But he doesn't want the cases to leave his hands. He's smart enough not to let a friend of Noel, do anything with them. So they're just staying close for now. And as they head into town in Malaga in Spain, Noel finally says, well, if you're going on to London, I've a friend there who is a chemist. Well, a friend of a friend, of course. He can help you with that. And that's all a good thing. Noel says to Kevin, do you need help moving it? Have you got people? Kevin has also had a call from Sefton Cooper. So rather than become entrenched in his new friend, about whom he knows really nothing except he's met his dad, and they all seem quite nice people, he's not going to entrust him with the boodle. Not at all. So, where can Noel go with this? Well, one place he's not going is to tell his dad about it, because his dad wouldn't be happy with any other operation. His dad just wanted him to find out whether this Kevin, the Englishman, was some kind of a spy or part of the forces that were looking at him. Noel reported back to Dad that Kevin was not a spy, and that made sense because he was an English speaker with very poor grasp of Spanish, and that would just seem too unlikely. So he dismissed that. Although Dad wanted the son tested a bit more than this very easy chore. As we know, these events are nothing if not timely. Yeah, very much so. And it is February now of 2021, and travel and moving about is becoming increasingly difficult. Kevin shouldn't shilly-shally on his journey, or he will end up being stuck in Spain, doing whatever he can there. And his advice that he was given from Sefton was that you can do nothing there except get yourself in trouble and certainly not make any money out of what you've got. If it's 3 kilos, you'd be lucky to make, well, you'd be lucky to get anything. You'd be shown a good time, I guess, but you'd be relieved of it. So he knows very much he's got to get it back into the UK. And travelling there is rather difficult. But one thing he wants to hang on to is the telephone number, mobile of course, of the chemist that's a friend of Noel. Why is all this so? Well, it is because it is. Noel plans on doing a little business quietly away from Dad to prove he can do things, but mostly to make some money, because indeed he does have friends in England. And yes, they do know a kind of roving chemist that does the extraction. He normally works out of Amsterdam, but he'll fly over just for the event. Going well? No, like I said, travel's difficult. Kevin, he's almost on his way. Is he flying? Not if he can help it. How would you travel back to the UK? What, do you think hugging the land helps? There's a bit of ocean. There is a bit of channel to cross. Those ferries aren't all great. They sort of operate, though. Yeah. So we'll leave him for now. He seems quite safe. What's happening with Jed? We're going to be late, you know, Jed, says Myra, as they head off to Irishman's Bend, with the Jelly Belly still in the back seat. The back of the car. It's moved from the trunk. There's about 5 kilos in there. Sure there is. And Jed, of course, he trusts Myra, but in a way he gives her a test question. As they approach the meeting place, he says, look, I don't really like driving straight into the back of what seems to be pretty much a junkyard with all this stuff in the back of the car. I tell you what, let's park it near the tower, which looks down. That they do. So it's a walk of about 15 minutes to get to where they need to be for the meeting. Of course, Carl's not too happy. But then, after a lot of little discussions, sure, he accepts that. Because he knows where the car is parked. He's been told. After all, they're all friends. There's no need for any of this. It's just the kind of caution you take when you're driving into some place. Don't you? As they sit in Bob's trailer down near the industrial park, we're waiting for the man, Bob's friend, who's got the 100,000, is going to take the coke. There's a bit of waiting going on, so Jed says to Carl, listen, why don't you walk up, check the coast is clear, pick up the car, and give me a call when Bob's friend arrives and I know the money's okay, and I'll tell you to drive on down with it. Carl takes this. He likes the idea of this because he's going to where the coke is. Sure enough, he walks away and gives a little call when he gets to the car. Yeah, everything's fine. Should I drive back now? No, you wait. Wait he does. Carl, of course, has his own devious ideas. He plans on, finding a better customer for that 5 kilos, and that customer happens to be himself, so that when he gets into the car, looks under the blanket in the back and sees that the belly's there. Oh, that wonderful belly. Though it's a bit scarred up by now, it's a bit hammered, looks kind of out of shape. But he gives it a little poke and decides to get out of where he's parked because he wants to have a little toot before the day goes on. In any event, he's got a fake call to put through. And this is what happens in quite rapid succession. Bob's friend who's going to buy the coke turns up, and Kevin and Myra don't like the look of him, and he doesn't seem to have the money with him. What a great surprise. But it's coming, it's surely coming. But at that very minute, Carl rings down from the Tower Hill, says that something's going on. It looks like there might be some cops around. He's just going to move it. You know what he's going to say next? The next time he speaks to Jed and Myra, he's going to say that he was robbed. Yes, robbed at that particular moment. By what, crooked policeman or somebody? Who knows who you get robbed by? Do they use greeting cards? I don't think so. So he's driving into another position and puts himself a little bit out of sight, but rather carelessly so, because he's now in the back seat ready to make love to the Jelly Belly. Well, put his nose in there anyway. And do you know what happens? Yeah, Carl actually does get robbed. A couple of guys come out of nowhere. It's not like they're wearing masks or anything. They were so quick about it. They just opened the door, threw stupid Carl to the ground, out the back of the thing, grabbed the Jelly Belly and ran back to their motorbike, which was waiting. It was all over within seconds. Now, he's really got something to report, hasn't he? But there's a bit of a problem here. Yeah, they took the keys to the car. Oh, the motorcycle guys. They could outrun the car and their bike in the hilly terrain, but they didn't want to do all that when they wanted to be rather leisurely in their flight. So then Carl would have to explain why he moved the car. I suppose he could say there's something to do with avoiding police, but where he is kind of worse in that regard. It's just on the point, and if you know the area, it's definitely where you wouldn't hide from the police. So he's going to look very iffy, very dodgy, very dishonest indeed, back with Jed and Myra, having lost the kitty. Jed's upset about this. Not only did he not get the deal, not only did Bob's friend not have the money, but he hasn't got his car. But more importantly, he hasn't got the Jelly Belly anymore, the thing that he sweated for, the thing that Myra's long-held watch was traded for in Colombia, the thing that Karen had an interest in. Yes, she did. And it won't surprise you to know that the guys on the motorcycle were Karen's people. Yeah, there's certainly been some careless talk around about that. And I think Myra has to do some explaining later on. But in compensation, Myra and Jed have taken Bob's car. It's the least he could do, and he really had no choice in the matter. So it's an old Oldsmobile, but they're taking it. It drives, it moves, and they head out towards the edge of town. And they stop, and they go to a cafe. How's English Kevin? Well, I'll tell you how he's doing. Rather casually. He's pleased that he's back in his motherland. He's pleased that he's in a place of safety. He's not so pleased that he's in the officially sanctioned quarantine hotel. Yes, serving out, well, at least 10 days, until he's cleared from the dreaded infection. Has he got his Samsonite cases with him? He certainly does. Does he have the chemist's number? Indeed he does. What's he going to do next? Well, here's the interesting thing. Do you wait until quarantine is over and go and meet a chemist with some Spanish people that you don't know very well in a place that's probably not entirely possible to keep secret, especially when you have to tell them where the damn place is? Or you go out on a limb, you somehow get the chemist, yes, to come to the quarantine hotel to do what chemists have to do. And what does chemist have to do? Well, he only needs a plug-in double mini stove cooker, microwave oven, and a few pots and pans. Well, not metal things, of course, but he doesn't need really very much. But does chemist want to do that? Go to the quarantine hotel? Not really. But Noel, huh? Who's Noel? Who cares about Noel? Yes, Noel's the son of the Spanish Mr. Big Enough Enrico, yeah. He's in a bit of a hurry. You see, here's the point. Any of the people who are in a hurry are only going to get themselves into a hurry for nowhere, or doom, or loss, or worse, prison. So Kevin shouldn't really be in a hurry, so he shouldn't be pushed along. But he does see some advantage and some irony in the chemist having to come into the quarantine hotel, even though that's not really permitted, you understand. There's a couple of things to clear about that. But how's Jed, anyway? Very sad, you'd think, wouldn't you? He's in a cafe with, sitting with coffees with Myra. They don't seem so sad. And why is that? I'll tell you why. Because the Jelly Belly did not have the coke in it. No, following the call from Sefton Cooper, Jed went down to the car, took out the coke from the Jelly Belly, which has already been in and out so many times it came away pretty easily, ran down to the Quickie Mart, got some baby milk formula, took it out of its its cardboard box, and he didn't even take much trouble. He just stuffed the plastic bags back into the slits in the Jelly Belly and threw it in the back of the car and then under the blanket. Yeah. So what happened then? Oh, back then, yeah. Carl was stealing nothing but baby milk formula. Oh, and the people who were stealing it from Carl on the motorbike stole the same thing. And that really didn't allow Bob to get a chance to steal it with his friend who didn't have the money to steal it. Whew. And what are Jed and Myra doing? Well, another road trip. This time they're heading for... Where are they going? Somewhere. I'll tell you in a minute. Green Park in Brooklyn, I think. Yeah, that's where they're headed. New York City. A bit of a change of scenery for us all. And where have they hidden the coke? What, not in another piece of rubber? I damn well hope so. It's getting a bit fetishistic, all of this. No, they've got a better idea for that. Well, as we come to the end of this part 6, and we find that our protagonists, Kevin from the UK and Jed from Ohio, are still surviving anyway. They don't seem to have made any money and they've lost a bit, but they still have their assets and they have their ideas and they have their few remaining loyalties, which, as always, turn out to be the old remaining loyalties. And I have told you about a lot of people with evil plans for stealing somebody else's stolen thing who steals from somebody else. And I can find no better expression of that than something Martin Amis wrote a few years ago. Let me see if I can find that and close with his passage. Let's see. To sum up this many and varied double cross, I can think of no better, as I say, than quoting from Martin Amis's London Fields, a masterly work, and in this short extract, which I hope he doesn't mind me quoting, I'm sure many people have, he's talking about the burglars of London and their little trade. Let me read. Little did they know that the place they were about to burgle, the shop, and the flat above it had already been burgled the week before. Yes, and the week before that. And the week before that. It was all burgled out. Indeed, burgling, when viewed in Darwinian terms, was clearly approaching a crisis. Burglars were finding that almost everywhere had been burgled. Burglars were forever bumping into one another, stepping on the toes of other burglars. There were burglar jams on rooftops and stairways, on groaning fire escapes. Burglars were being burgled by fellow burglars and were doing the same thing back. Burgled goods jigged from flat to flat. Returning from burgling, burglars would discover that they themselves had just been burgled, sometimes by the very burglar that they themselves had just burgled. How would this crisis in burgling be resolved? It would be resolved when enough burglars found burgling a waste of time and stopped doing it. Then for a while, burgling would become worth doing again. But burglars had plenty of time to waste. It was all they had plenty of, and there was nothing else to do with it. So they just went on burgling. Goodbye for now, and we'll continue in part 7 with the adventures of Jed and Kevin. Good night.